Okay, so today we're going to talk about prorations in a nutshell. Okay, so in one of our videos, we already talked about the buyer's cost when they get a new loan, understanding that they have to pay interest at closing. If they close after the second, they have to pay that interest for the entire month. Okay, so if they close on the first, they're going to make their next payment the very next month, which means they don't have to pay any interest because that month is going to cover the month before. So if they close on the second all the way through the 31st or however many days is in that month, then they're going to have to be responsible for bringing that amount to closing. So we're going to say that the buyer is closing on May 15th. They need to bring their interest for their new loan at closing as to what they owe. So we use the example of $200,000 loan amount and then the 5% interest rate. We're going to multiply the $200,000 times 5%, which is going to give us a $10,000 annual interest payment. They paid $10,000 in interest for the first year. We're going to use the financial calendar of 360 days. Again, when you are prompted with a problem, they will let you know whether to use the financial calendar of 360 days. So in this example, we're going to use the 360 days and we're going to divide $10,000 by 360, and that's going to give us $27.78. Okay, that's going to give us our daily rate. So what we're wanting to figure out is how much interest is being paid per day. So we figure out that it's $10,000 per year. We're going to divide it by the 360 calendar year, get $27.78. The closing date is on May 15th. The buyer owes for 15 days. We're going to take our daily rate of $27.78 times the 15 days that the buyer owes, which comes out to $416.70. That is the formula for interest for a buyer with a new loan. Okay, so when we're talking about the closing date for the buyer, the lender is looking at them owning the property on closing day. On closing day. If this were a seller situation and the seller closed on May 15th, their lender would want them to pay for May 1st through May 15th the interest on their loan. They have a separate different loan, a separate different numbers. So if it is a seller situation and they're asking you how much will the seller owe in interest, remember the seller is going to pay for the entire time that they own the property. So that will be from May 1st through May 15th. This is a different loan. The lender is looking at them again as owning the property on closing date when it refers to their interest. Okay? That's nothing that the buyer and seller is dividing up amongst each other. They have two totally separate different loan amounts, interest rates, everything. So we can't combine those two. But I did want to show you how to calculate if the question asks, how much will the seller owe? Okay? Let's go into insurance. Remember, hazardous insurance is paid in advance. So we're not going to even talk about the buyer, because if the hazardous insurance is $500 a year, then that's what the buyer will bring. Let's talk about it from the seller standpoint, because they have paid it up in a year. Remember the first rule, when we're talking about a year, the hazard insurance can go from April 1st of 2019 all the way through April 30th of 2020. So remember, one calendar year is the first day that the policy begins all the way into the next year of the month before of the last day. Okay, so I'll give you an example. If the policy starts on August the 1st, 2019, it will end on July 31st, 2020. If the policy starts on February 1st, 2019, it will end January 31st, 2020. So we're gonna always, and that will throw your numbers off. If you don't get your calendar right when we're talking about the hazard insurance and the calendar year, okay? And that's the same thing in a lease agreement. A lease would go from May 1st, 2019 until April 30th, 2020. Or it'll go from September 1st, 2019, all the way through August 31st, 2020. It is important that you write down your months and know how many days are in each month, okay? Because if you get your days off, they're gonna give you an answer for 1 day off, 2 days off, okay? So make sure you understand all your months in a calendar year and how to, all your months in each calendar month and how to calculate your calendar year as far as the first day, beginning, and then ending on the last day of the previous month, okay? So take note of that. Make sure you put that in your notes. So, we have an insurance policy that starts on June 13th. It's going to end on June 12th the next year, okay? So what we're gonna do to get to see how much we owe the seller, again, we're talking about sellers when we're talking about hazard insurance. We're gonna get the annual insurance. If they paid $1,000 a year, we're going to divide that by 365 days. We're gonna get their annual insurance amount that they paid. We're gonna get divided by 365 days in order to get their daily rate. And then we're gonna multiply it by the number of days. Credit begins the day after closing through the policy expiration date. So if the policy expires on June 12th of 2020 and they close on September the 2nd of 2019, the seller will be credited for September the 3rd all the way through June 12th. So from September the 3rd, 2019, all the way through June 12th, 2020, because they did not own the property during those days and they are due to receive a credit, okay? So again, to prorate the hazardous insurance, we're gonna get our annual insurance rate. We're gonna divide it by 365 days. That's gonna give us our daily rate. And we're gonna times it by the number of days that the seller did not own the property, okay? So we'll start the day after closing to start our proration, okay? So again, this is a regular calendar year. It has nothing to do with finances, so we will not be using the financial calendar year. This is a 365 day, and remember how to calculate your 1 year. Okay. So taxes. When taxes have been paid by the seller, the credit will begin the day after closing all the way to the end of the year. The seller will receive a credit from the day after closing all the way through the end of the year. When the taxes have not been paid, we will start at January 1st all the way up through closing to debit the seller. If the seller has not paid the taxes, we will start at January 1st all the way through the day of closing to get the number of days and debit the seller because they are responsible for taxes during the time they own the house. We're gonna get the tax amount. We're gonna divide that by 365, again, to get our daily rate. And we're gonna multiply it by the number of days. That's gonna give us our taxes. And we're gonna take our tax bill. Let's say it's $1,000. We're gonna divide it by 365 days to get our daily rate. And then we're gonna get our number of days that the seller is either responsible for or is going to be credited for. Now we talk about rent. Rent is going to be the amount of rent divided by the number of days in a month. So if your rent is $1,500 and we're talking about May, we're gonna divide that by 31 days. That's gonna give us our daily rate. The seller will be giving prorated rent due to them from the first day of the month up until closing day. That's what the seller will be paid. We're talking about rent when we have an investor who's buying a property and the tenant is already living in there, okay? So now we're closed, the tenant has paid their rent for May, they're closing on May 15th. So the seller is due rent from May 1st through May 15th. The new buyer, the investor, will be given the May 16th through the May 31st portion of the rent. That's how it will be prorated. Again, we will take the amount of rent, example $1,500. We're using May, 31 days. So we're gonna take $1,500 divided by 31 days to get our daily rate. We're closing on May 15th, we're gonna take the first 15 days to give to the seller. And then the 16 days the buyer will get from May 16th through May 31st. The buyer will have that money for the rent, okay? So this is prorations in a nutshell. You can rewind the tape and kind of play with some numbers and do the formulas, but these formulas are pretty much the same. We're gonna get our annual amount, and we're gonna divide it by either a financial calendar of 360 days, or if we're dealing with the lender, or anything else, we're gonna use the 365 days. But the question will tell you if it's a financial calendar, and you will use the 360, okay? So basically, when we're talking about getting how many days the seller or buyer owes, we need to break down our daily rates at that point. Make sure you're getting your daily rates. All right, trying to keep it simple. This is prorations in a nutshell. I'll see you on the next video.